Hello. There we go. I can hear you now. What's going on, brother?
All right. Well, I'm doing good. How are you?
Not bad at all. Just enjoying my holiday. I'm doing at least a podcast a day every day for about 7 days. So
Oh, that's fantastic. All
mm,
right. So you're gonna be accumulating quite a few episodes, I take it.
mostly of Macca in your attic, but I'll have a couple of the actual pod done as well. But it's all for the Patreon people because they get instant access to it. So it's
There
worth their
you
money,
go.
you know.
That's
Uh,
fantastic.
how am I pronouncing your surname, bro?
Como, just like Perry Como.
Cool.
Yeah.
There we are. I'm literally just going to write it how I'm going to spell it. Say it. Sorry. There we are.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Brilliant. Behind
I'm
the
just
scenes.
I'm just gonna turn on an additional light. It
Sure.
just seems a little bit dark on my end.
It's
Um,
mysterious, you know. It's,
yes. All right.
you step out of our world into our world. What's that from? Oh no, that's from Twin Freaks, isn't it? Yeah. You step out of your world into our world.
I believe so. I'll be back in just a second.
Righty-ho. Excellent.
All right.
There we are. So, yeah, general chit chat about Beatles, Paul, and memorabilia and collecting and all that jazz. And then we'll launch into your 5 items. And then
Yep.
we do a few plugs at the end, I guess. But, it's all simple stuff, all very conversational. If you want to have digressions or wanderings, feel more than free.
Very good.
Typically, minimum time about 45 minutes, but they can go up to an hour and a half as well. Either way, it's all how much time you've got.
Yep.
So, without any further ado, let's get into this thing. Hello, and welcome to Macca in Your Attic. Oh, I'm going to start that again. Blah. I didn't like it the way I sounded there. Hello and welcome to Macca in Your Attic, a Paul or Nothing spin-off show where the guest always shows me their junk. Now, today, me and my guest are going to go through their attic and they're going to show me 5 unique, sentimental, cool, interesting, unique items from their attic, hopefully with their own unique story. As always, be sure to check out the Patreon page for access to loads of episodes in our backlog and hit us up on either paulmccartneypod@gmail.com or at McCartneypod if you want to say hi. Today, everyone, I'm actually joined by someone who is actually going to, well, they have to be described as crazy because they've put their name forward in wanting to come onto this show. And that is something that I've really wanted, because not only is the show barely edited, but now if the guests are also going to do all the hard work for me as well, then this is just going to be the best gig on earth. Recently, you will have heard his 2 turns on both Fans on the Run and the I Know podcasts, but now he's here for a round or 2 with one of the big boys, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone, please welcome Max Comeau. Max, how's it going, bro?
I'm doing great, Sam. Super happy to be on Macca in the Attic.
No, it's a pleasure to have you here, man. I'm looking forward to this. I have no idea what is going to be in your attic. There is not a generic Beatles YouTuber background behind you where you are displaying it all to show your worth as almost like a mating ritual. You know, those birds in
Right.
in the south of America. Beatle fans are a bit like that, trying to attract a mate, as it were. But have you had to go into a physical attic today? Are these just selections that are in and around your house, your bedroom?
They're in and around my house. They're all over, really. I mean, there are McCartney items all over my place. He's everywhere, here, there, everywhere. I mean, it's Paul.
Yeah,
He
you
is,
are leading a
he is
better
the
life.
center of my musical universe, Sam. I mean, he really is.
I totally sympathize with that because same for me, bro. So
I mean, Beatles fan for starters, but once I became a McCartney fan, it's just, for me, my love for Paul just goes sort of beyond beyond it all. I mean, it's sort of like he's like a family member. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like a distant uncle, you know. I mean, he just feels like he's in my blood.
Yeah, and I always feel like people, whenever you say how much you like McCartney, they say, "Well, do you like him more than the Beatles?" And it's one of those few questions where I'm like, "You can't ask me that, bro. That's
Right.
I
Yeah.
refuse. I plead the fifth, Your Honor. I plead the fifth on
Yeah.
that one." Because I'm not gonna make Sophie's choice that way. I just couldn't do it. But when did you first get into the Beatles, and then when did you subsequently start getting the merch, the tat?
Well, I first got into the Beatles when I was 16 years old, when Anthology One came out.
Oh, good times.
And Free as a Bird was all over the radio. And it just connected with me in a way that previously the Beatles had never connected. To me, the Beatles were, a thing of the past. It was a nostalgia
Mm,
band, and I really wasn't all that interested at all. And somehow, Free as a Bird, not that it's anywhere near their greatest song or anything like that, but it
yeah.
connected with me, you
Mm,
know? I mean, now I look back on Free as a Bird and Real Love, and I hear the Jeff Lynne criticisms. You know, I hear all that stuff. But
mhm.
for 15 or 16-year-old me, I guess I was 15 the first time I heard it. But anyway, it just had this impact. I can't even describe it. And for Christmas that year, I got Anthology One from my then girlfriend, and that's really what started the ball rolling. Hearing Paul complaining about not having a plectrum on One After 909, to me, it made them human,
Yeah.
and it just connected with me. All of a sudden, they were characters, and they were characters with a story, which should have been obvious from the get go, because I
Mhm.
mean, what are the Beatles if they're not iconic characters? But it wasn't obvious to me at that age in the mid 90s. But then all of a sudden it connected with Anthology One. And within, I would say, 6 months, I had the entire Beatles discography on CD back in the day. And I still, of course, own those CDs, those old 1987, I guess, or
Mm.
1986, those original CDs. And then, of course, bought the remasters, and, I became a fan almost instantly.
I'd say that particular run of CDs is probably rarer and harder to get now than the vinyl collection. Now the vinyl has resurged back in, so
That's
that's such a
probably
yeah.
true. And I mean, all of my CDs are in a shelf right to my right, and they're still in mint condition. I remember when the remasters came out, I there was a part of me that wanted to give away my old '80s CDs. Well, but I
Oh
would have kept them within the family. I would have
yeah,
given them
right.
away to one of my nieces, most probably. But they were already at a point where MP3s had already kind of taken over by
Mm.
2009 when the remasters came out. So for my nieces, it wasn't all that interesting to have physical CDs. So I've kept them, and I cherish them. They're a part of my life. They're a part of my Beatles history, if you will.
It sounds so quaint now to anyone listening to this in 2021, especially anyone younger than myself. The idea that you wouldn't even had access to clips of the Beatles talking, if you just clips of songs, early demos, everything that is just on Spotify or Apple Music, a click or away now. Um,
Absolutely, very true.
and I always romanticize it here on the show. But I just love the idea that you would be able to find a scrap of info or hear something that your friends wouldn't. That just seems so cool to me, and it would make the music so much more precious and less disposable.
Well, I completely agree. And although I adore streaming and I'm a big fan of streaming, there is still something really, really important to me with the physical medium and the connection that you have to it. You know, I can't help but purchase every archive box set because I know that I'm going to love spending hours sitting down with the books, rereading things I've read before, And I might stream the actual music for convenience on Spotify, but to know that I have the physical format and all the literature that comes with it, and the artifacts and whatnot, that to me is priceless. I mean, it's something that I still value in 2021, very much so.
I always say to my friends, if there's ever a cataclysmic event, all the MP3s will be gone. But as long as I can somehow manufacture a way to spin a record 33 and a third times a minute, it's all there. It's all physically there.
I absolutely agree with you, and I do feel that at some point, um, the music industry and the way we get our media is evolving all the time. So I predict that at some point, these streaming services and all these fantastic playlists we've made, they are going to disappear at some point.
Oh,
Or it's not
no.
going to be accessible or whatnot, So
Yeah.
I'm going to want to have my physical CDs and a way to hopefully play them in 20, 30, 40 years from now, or whatever. So
Well,
yeah, it's precious to me to have
yeah.
the physical media. And we're talking about when I first became a Beatles fan. To me, I have a huge nostalgia thinking about the fact that um, these albums were all new to me when I was purchasing them week
Mhm.
after week. Started with Magical Mystery Tour. A couple of weeks later, got Sergeant Pepper. Well, each and every one of those songs were new to me, except for the huge singles.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
songs that, for instance, feature on the Red or Blue album. I mean, I knew most of those songs, the essentials that you'll hear on classic rock radio, but I remember hearing Getting Better for the first time and thinking, man, how come that's not a huge hit? How come
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not as well known as I Want to Hold Your Hand? I thought it was amazing. And those lyrics, they were so shocking to me, that final verse about being cruel to my woman.
Mhm.
I thought, wow, this is amazing stuff. And the fact that everything was new, and I couldn't, as you were mentioning earlier, I couldn't just with a click of a mouse go and listen to whatever song and preview the albums. I had to go out and get them.
Mhm.
So that to me was precious, and that is maybe something that's been lost with the advent of streaming and whatnot.
What about collecting in the modern world? Though? Are you an eBay guy, or do you still like to go to fairs whilst wearing a mask and gloves and covered in
Well,
disinfectant?
I'll be honest with you. Most of the things that I collect are the official releases that are put out by McCartney and whatnot.
Okay.
Um, and I own a few bootleg CDs that I bought back in the day. Like I had bought the Esher demos
That's cool.
on a CD, a bootleg back in the day. But getting the official release of the show demos was like a lot more exciting for me, because I loved hearing those recordings sounding really good and
Hmm.
not on a crappy bootleg CD. They sounded really crappy on the old CD I had. So, and I haven't been to a Beatles fair in a long time. Um, I'm more of a uh, I guess a completist kind of collector,
Hmm.
and not so much into like the quirky items. Although, I mean, there are one or two quirky items, I guess, that I'm
he
going to
he
show
look he,
today.
he
But
looks off camera to a quirky item.
yeah, I mean, I'm looking
Yeah.
at one in particular, which I think Ethan had as well, but I'm still presenting mine. But anyway, yeah, I need those. I need the box sets, and I need the music and the official stuff. But yeah, I mean, you're actually making me want to go to a Beatles fair, because it's been so long since I've been to one.
Never been to one, so I need to pop that cherry certainly. But you did definitely touch on the point that the way that Apple and MPL and Harris Songs and all of those people can
Yeah.
invalidate piracy and bootlegs is just release officially. And like the excuse of back in the day, it's all tapes and analog, and it would take a lot of man hours, and you got to distribute it.
Right.
With the internet and unpaid internships, they could get that stuff out there. There's no
Most definitely.
excuse. Like the fact that I can't listen to Crazy Dervish Moog at the drop of a hat is borderline criminal. You know, it really is.
And, you know, I was really hoping that they were going to pursue what they started in, I believe, 2013, which was to release. Remember when they did that digital only release of like early outtakes? It was sort of like the anthology, and they were saying that they were going to do that every year. I'll find the actual name, but do you know what I'm referring
Was that
to?
on? Is that on the Mccartney downloads page on
Well,
his site?
no,
or?
it was actually it was a Beatle thing. I mean, it's exclusively a Beatles, and it was official. They were releasing them on Apple Music, and it was sort of a continuation. You had outtakes from the early sessions, and they had announced, and they were doing this. Excuse me, they were doing this for copyright issues. You know how 50 years after a recording.
Yeah.
And so they had just sort of dumped that on I believe iTunes, and I'd gotten a download of it. Anyway, I wish they had continued that because, yeah, just as you say, just make everything available. We're going to gobble it up as fans anyway. We're going to give it 1 million streams, or we're going to purchase it if you release it in physical form. Go ahead, give it to us. You know, that's what we're waiting for.
Like, I wonder if there's an issue whereby if they like just uploaded Momax hidden tracks volumes 1 through 20, if they'd end up having to pay the illegal pirate who made them in some weird perverse way. Because I know a lot of bootlegs are made like in Luxembourg and stuff like you know, real tax havens, you know.
Right.
So maybe there are other reasons. I don't know, but
I mean, there have to be some kind of reasons, but I'm hopeful that with time, I think these guys are realizing with time that we're fans, and it's not going to affect the legacy if you release all sorts of, you know, outtakes. And you know, there's always been this mystery over Carnival of Light, whether we're going to get it one day or not. You know, just if it's as terrible as some say it is, it's not going to tarnish the legacy. Just put it out there for us fans. We'll love it. We want to hear it. Just put it out there.
Yeah, it's gonna and still, like, you know, everyone's least favorite Beatles song is something they're very passionate about. So and it's not gonna knock off anyone's least favorite Beatles song off of their personal top spots. You know,
Absolutely.
My history teacher, Mr. Garrett, hated Octopus's Garden, and it really broke my heart when he said that. I was like, no, sir, no, I love that one. I just don't like it, Samuel. I just don't like it.
You know, when I was a kid, I actually heard Octopus's Garden way before hearing the Abbey Road version done. I heard the song done by Raffi.
Really?
Yeah. It was on his album. Oh man, I forget the name of the album, but I'm kind of a children's music nerd, so I should know that off the top of my head. But anyway, he did a fabulous version of Octopus's Garden. And as a kid, I just thought either it was a traditional song or it was a song that had been composed by Raffi. I really didn't know. And first time I guess I found out about the fact that it was a Beatles song on the Blue album, and that sort of like shocked me. I was like, oh, that's a Beatles song. Wow, Octopus's Garden. And yeah, George's guitar work on that song is so fantastic. I can't see why anyone would dislike Octopus's Garden.
I feel like its inclusion on the Blue album is definitely one of those. We need to give Ringo copyright residuals from this album.
I do agree with you on that one. Absolutely. It's not, and as much as I enjoy Old Brown Shoe, the George B-side, I don't feel that really has its place on the Blue album either. So there are a couple of decisions on the Blue album that I kind of question the wisdom behind it, especially when considering the exclusions on the Red album.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, the Red album should have better Revolver representation, for instance.
and that is another one of those what if questions that I'm yet to do on an episode. Oh, that's put a pin in that one. Put a bit proper red and blue albums. We'll put a pin in that one. Oh, I wonder how many it would take to cover McCartney. So we've got. So if we did all colours, so it's 2 per decade, really. So, oh my God, yeah, okay.
That would make a lot. But you wouldn't need 2 compilation albums to cover his '90s output, for instance. So some decades would suffer a bit. I mean, Paul was pretty quiet in the '90s. I mean, he was busy as he always has been, but when you just look at his pop rock output, the '90s was a fairly quiet decade for him.
Yeah, in a ultimate McCartney compilation, do you include the classical and the fireman stuff? Like if it was an all-encompassing set and it's to rival the Harrison $1,000 set,
right?
Go on.
Well, if it's all-encompassing, then most definitely, because it's part of the genius of the man. The fact that he can turn around and compose the Liverpool Oratorio and Standing Stone and all that great stuff. I mean, some of that new classical stuff of his is fantastic, I find, and his score to The Family Way is gorgeous.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous.
It's so good. So going from past to present now, obviously you've just touched on the archive editions, and I'm guessing you probably own quite a few of them. But how do you feel about Beatles product right now in general? Is there too much, or do you feel like a kid in a candy shop right now?
I feel like a kid in a candy shop, and I also feel that Beatles fans that get upset at the wealth of material that is put out, they're sort of upset because they're thinking to themselves, hey, I only have a $3,000 budget for Beatles stuff per year, and now you guys are putting out this and that, and now the Get Back or the Let It Be box set is going to be coming out probably in October, and All Things Must Pass. Why complain? The thing is that as a consumer, it's entirely up to you. Don't buy it. If you can't afford it, or you'd rather not spend the dough, then don't. And the great thing about these releases so far, anyway, is they've all been available. They've all been made available through the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So, for instance, All Things Must Pass, I am planning on purchasing the regular 3LP edition. I'm not planning to get the $1,000 box set. Love George, love All Things Must Pass. I've been loving streaming it, and yes, I will, as I said, buy the vinyl regular edition. But that'll be it for me, just because you've got to make choices at some point. With McCartney, I don't really make those choices. I just go and I buy the stuff because it's a love beyond. However, I'm a little bit more, well, maybe, I'm a little bit more reasonable when it comes to the 3 other members, put it that way.
No, I mean, do you want to get, Goodnight Vienna on gold vinyl when that comes out in a few years? Who knows?
I don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I enjoy Goodnight Vienna. And I love listening to Ringo. I actually went on a Ringo kick, I believe on Sunday night. I started listening to Old Wave from like, what is that, 82 or 83, the Joe Walsh produced album. And I enjoy Ringo. I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars on a Ringo reissue. Love you, Ringo. Peace and love.
Yeah, like picture discs and maxi discs and 12-inch cassettes of Ringo.
In the end, it's all about the music is the top priority. So buying multiple editions of the same album just for the different colored vinyls, that's not my thing.
Okay.
I get that that's some fans' thing, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, great. But not my thing. Definitely
So,
not.
okay, just and if it's not going to spoil your selections, talk me through the last three modern McCartney albums. Then New, Egypt Station, and then McCartney 3/3 Imagined. What did you get?
Well, I got them all on vinyl, and as far as McCartney 3 goes, I got the Spotify Green edition.
Ooh,
Uh, because I'm a
nice.
Spotify lover, even though as a singer-songwriter myself that has stuff on Spotify, it's true. The cut that artists get from streaming is so minimal
Mhm,
and it's mildly insulting. However, it is such a beautiful thing, the access to music,
mhm.
that if I were to weigh the pros and cons, I find there are more pros. So, as a symbol of my love for Spotify, I bought the Spotify Green edition of McCartney 3. I knew I wanted McCartney 3 on vinyl,
Mhm.
but I got it a month and a half after the album came out,
Oh,
which
really?
was, it was, and that was definitely a bummer
Oh,
because I was quote unquote stuck listening to it on streaming platforms for a month and a half, and that was very disappointing to me because I pre-ordered the
get that.
album like
Yeah.
whatever months before it came out. But I mean, in the end, what matters and the top priority really is the music. So and I've loved the last few McCartney albums. In fact, I've loved them all since let's make a cutoff point. I mean, my first solo Paul album was Flaming Pie.
Yeah,
That
it
was the
makes
first
sense.
one that came out with me as a fan, and I've loved every single album since. Actually, interestingly enough, the one that I would say I've liked the least is actually one of the most critically acclaimed of the bunch, and it's Run Devil Run. I'm not knocking Run Devil Run, but
Hmm.
it's just when I go to McCartney, I go to McCartney for McCartney songs. And
Yeah.
so hearing him do She Said Yeah and I Got Stung and Coquette, that's great. But I'd rather hear Paul do, Try Not to Cry or Run Devil Run. Anything that's an original
Hmm.
means a lot more to me.
Now, Chobbers or Snother has been one of the only occasions where I've really been into Paul's covers. I might even put that record on right after this recording. I love that
And
so
I
much.
mean, No Other Baby stands as one of the best recordings of his career, as far as I'm concerned. Like that is absolutely spectacular, and it benefits from the original not being that well known. I believe it was the Vipers that
Hmm.
did the original version of that song, and I've listened to it a few times on Spotify and on different platforms back in '99 when that album came out. But still, I'd rather hear Paul do Paul.
Yeah, I get that. Now, is there anything that you've not managed to grab, or is there anything that's ever gotten away from you that keeps you up at night?
That keeps me up at night. No, but I have experienced some pretty substantial frustration with the half speed mastered McCartney and Ram. I
Okay.
pre-ordered both those albums when they were announced, and I pre-ordered them through McCartney's website.
Hmm.
And on both occasions for both albums, there were mishaps in the delivery. And, I got the reimbursement. That's not the issue. But I never ended up getting either of those albums,
Oh.
either of the half speed. And, it's not a tragedy. It doesn't keep me up at night. But those were two releases that I was really willing to fork over the dough. And I did it completely on the up and up through McCartney's official website. So that was frustrating, and Ram was especially frustrating
Yeah,
because
it's Ram.
um, it's Ram,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I love Ram, and Ram is one of those albums that I am willing to purchase in 16 different iterations. If he had, if he puts out another Ram box set in you know uh, whatever number of years, I'll be there, even if there are only uh, just a handful of new outtakes or whatnot. Anything he puts out, under the Ram name, I'll come running.
We still really haven't got on the demos, like the home demos for a lot of Ram.
Very
Still,
true.
yeah.
Very true.
Where's all of
And
that, Paul? Come on.
and how amazing would it be to have audio documentaries the way they've done with Lennon, of these songs progressions, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, there must have been, with a song like Ram On, there must have been a whole creative process. Where does that piano intro come from?
Mhm.
Was it always on ukulele? Is there a guitar version?
Yeah.
You know, these songs evolved from somewhere, and so it would be great to get some you know, audio documentaries of how these songs evolved. I
As
mean,
long,
Lord knows I would fork
yeah,
over money for that.
as long as they contain Paul doing his non-vocalizations, like it just goes like this.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
long as it's got lots of that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, isn't that part of what we just adore about the man, is that you know that the songs are all finished in his mind when
yes.
he when he's explaining these parts to the musicians he's working with. You know he hears it, and he hears it perfectly. And that's a talent. And it's a huge talent, because you can be a solid songwriter and not really have a vision of what the record should
Mhm.
sound like. Whereas Paul has known how the record should sound like since probably the very early Beatles days, you know? He got that really quickly.
This touches on the whole issue of, like, is he annoying to work with, or is there an equally annoyed Paul who's just sat there going, oh God, if everyone would just get
Good
what's
point.
in my head and just do
Yes.
it when I ask
Yeah.
them to, we can move on to their song. But then he also will, like, when they get to their song, he's probably like, oh God, George, we really need a steel slide guitar in this,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that.
Absolutely. I think you got it entirely right. I think it's 50-50. I think it's annoying for the others. Um, Not in 2021, because I
Mhm.
mean, you know,
Yeah.
for the last at least 20 years, if not more, musicians have come in expecting to be told what to do, more or less.
Mhm.
And they're okay with it because it's McCartney and he's become this institution. But yeah, it must have been tough on George, John, and Ringo, and it must have been tough on all of the various Wings lineups, you know,
Mm.
because there must have been a temptation to say, well, wait a minute, I'm Jimmy McCulloch, I'm a hell of a guitar player, I think my idea is better. There must have been a lot of that. And I'm sure that Paul was willing to hear most ideas out, but I'm also sure that in 80, if not 90% of the cases, Paul would say, that's pretty good, but my idea is better. So let's go with that.
I've always likened it to when you're trying to teach someone a new board game and you know how to play it, and they're
Yeah.
about to make a wrong move, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I suppose I
Yeah.
have to let you make that wrong move, but if you just
Right.
let me roll your dice for 1 second,
Yeah.
I swear you'll have more fun. I
Yes,
swear.
absolutely. Absolutely. You'll get into it more. I promise.
Definitely. Right. Now, with all of that ancillary chat out of the way, I think it's time we went up into your quote unquote attic, as it were.
Yes.
So please do show me your first item. Let's have a look.
Well, my first two items are very much related. 2002, Paul announces he'll be touring the US. And again, a this is one of those things where most people now and the new generation fans, they take for granted that Paul has been on the road for the last 20 years nearly nonstop.
Mhm.
But in 2002, way back when he announced that he was touring, this was going to be his first tour since the Off the Ground tour all those years ago.
Mhm.
I think it was called the New World Tour
Yeah.
in '93. He hadn't toured since. So for me in 2002, it was like the end of the world. And he hadn't announced any Canadian dates. And I'm in Montreal, Canada, of course. And so I'm at that point 22 years old, and it is my biggest priority in the world to get to New York City to see Sir Paul McCartney. So I saw him at Madison Square Garden, um, on the Driving Rain tour, or on the Back in the US tour, I should
Yeah.
say. And it was, I mean, I wept, of course, which I think most Beatles fan
You
weep at
say you
least once
won't.
or-
You say you won't going in like, you know.
Yeah,
What? Hearing Yesterday or, Blackbird or Here Today. I've heard that song a million times. Yeah, I get a cry.
of course. Yes, you sort of almost take it for granted, and then you see the man perform it in front of you, and you just think, "Oh my goodness, are you? This is really him?"
Yeah.
And that's exactly the reaction I had. I actually remember during Hello Goodbye, which was the opening track. I
Uh,
actually I actually remember turning to my friend and saying to him, "It's really him, isn't it?" And I was all choked up.
yeah. Yeah.
It was the end of the world. And I kept thinking to myself, it was weird, but I kept thinking to myself, you know, it, is it really? I mean, it has to be, right? Of course it's him, of course.
Yeah.
But there was this sort of questioning because it was almost too much for me to take.
Mhm.
And in retrospect, I wish I hadn't checked the set list before that show because,
Oh,
for
you
instance, I
have
knew.
to. You have to,
Well,
though.
and I had to back then for sure. So I knew that Getting Better was coming up. It was the fourth song in the set. And I mean, when the first, guitar,
Yeah.
exactly, when
Yeah.
that kicked in, that was just, I mean, I couldn't get over it. I could not get over it. So yes, I purchased at that show a shirt which there's, I don't know if it's probably still on YouTube somewhere, but there's actual footage of Paul wearing this shirt with a pair of gray slacks at a sound check. But this shirt, I don't know if you can see it.
Ah, nice.
This is a
Very.
shirt that I still wear to this day, on special McCartney days. Like, for instance, when McCartney 3 was released, I was working that Friday. And so I wore this to work. It was casual Friday, and I just had to. And to anyone who asked, like, "Oh, you are you a McCartney fan?" I was like, "Yes." And he's released McCartney 3 today. The world has stopped turning.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'll show you the back.
Oh,
I'm not a huge
nice.
fan of. There's like there's a handprint here, which I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, that's cool.
It's an homage to the hand on the cover. Like his
Yeah.
his
Oh.
the Driving Rain album cover.
No, it's the
But
hand above his head, the Hindu symbol
yes,
of
exactly.
death.
Wow, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a sign, a clear sign that
Yeah.
he has passed. But yeah. Anyway, but I love the front. I love the way his name is written, and
It's very
it's done as like an
Red
old
Rose
baseball
Speedway.
shirt,
Yeah.
those
Oh.
old-fashioned baseball shirts. And I absolutely love it. And I always take it out, as I say, when there's a McCartney event on his birthday, actually, on June 16th, June 16th. I always wear that shirt. It's kind of a tradition for me. And I'm not the type to buy rock shirts at rock concerts because I always find they look tacky. And prints of the album covers on T-shirts, to me, they always, I don't know, I don't really dig that look. But that shirt, I had to get it, and I don't remember how much it cost, but I remember it cost more than what it's actually worth in terms of the quality of the shirt. It's a pretty average quality shirt, but I've kept it intact, and I'm very proud to say that it looks every bit as good as when I bought it.
No, I always wear my merch. I hate the idea of just t-shirts sitting in a drawer somewhere. Like
True.
if I'm on my deathbed, I want to be like, oh, I'm glad I wore all that stuff every day, and everyone asked me about it, and we had
Absolutely.
conversations. Yeah,
They're conversation starters, most definitely. I still get people that are surprised when I tell them that my favorite musician of all time is McCartney, because their brain sort of goes to, well, yes, he was in the Beatles, but that was, over 50 years ago.
Mhm.
And yes, he had, a few hits. But then I go, no, 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 he didn't have a few hits. He had a ton of hits after the Beatles, and he's released a ton of masterpiece albums, at least 10 certifiable masterpiece albums.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I'm at peace with you not knowing about, you know, Off the Ground or Driving Rain or you know, whatever. But if you have never heard Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, please go do your homework and then come talk to me. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel about it. I just, you know, so when people tell me, really, McCartney? I'm like, yes, McCartney. You know, and there should be no really question mark. There shouldn't.
No, I always feel like I'm on the defensive because I never open with I've got a Paul McCartney podcast. I open with I've got a podcast, and then it's like, oh really? Okay, what's it about? And it's
Right.
like judgment time. Here we go. This is
Right.
this is the Rubicon. You know,
Yes.
this is the pitchfork in the road, especially on a first date. Oh my god! It's
Oh,
like,
well, of course. But you know, I'm happy to say that for the most part, people get it. For the most part. You know, yes, I do get the occasional really, but I have to say, most people get it. I think, you know, as he ages and as his legacy keeps growing, um, I really do think that most people get that this guy is really special. I mean, he's not just an oldies act, and he's not just someone who had an extraordinary run for a number of years. He's had several extraordinary runs, and he's, you know, he's an all-time artist, and I think people are getting it, and that's why, you know, people and we're digressing here, but I guess as you said in your intro, it's part of what this show is, digressing. But you know, McCartney 321, the Rick Rubin documentary with Paul.
the episode is at the time of recording going to be coming out in 2 days. Yeah.
There you go. You know, some fans have gotten upset over the fact that, you know, there are a lot of the stories that we've heard before that are rehashed. But you know what? For millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be watching McCartney 321 or have watched it, they don't know about Jimi Hendrix opening with Sgt. Pepper. They don't know about Paul pretending to be a Frenchman at parties. And, you know, years later, John encouraging him to write lyrics to it, and it becomes Michelle. You know, all of that. A lot of fans don't know that stuff, new fans. And it's part of, you know, building up that legacy for casual fans and people to realize that this man has done some incredible things in his life, you know. And I'm happy that that is still going on and that people are still interested in pushing and defending this extraordinary legacy.
I loved 321 so much. It was so good. But, you know,
So did I.
I do understand if people wanted newer content.
Yes.
And, but
Well,
I also argue that it's the content presented in the best possible way. And it's kind of on streaming now. So it is more forever, I guess. And,
right.
you know, it's the same argument when, you know, we will sit here and say, why doesn't he open his concerts with Not Such a Bad Boy? And it's like, well, it's because I think you're underestimating that 65% of the people around you are not diehard Paul McCartney fans. And,
Very
you know,
true.
that, you know, Paul's always said, you know, I want people to see the fireworks for Live and Let Die. And, you know,
Yeah.
you are going to get them because you are paying a substantial amount of money. And
Yeah.
and if he, you know, ends up playing, I don't know, Through Our Love or Hey Hey or something, half the people are going to go to the toilet.
Most definitely. You know, I remember when the first time I saw him in 2002, which is what my first two items are about. I remember people walking to the bathroom stalls when he got into that trifecta of Driving Rain songs. You
He
know,
never
did,
does that anymore. He doesn't put them together ever.
no, which is a smart move because, you know, people do tend to shy away from the new stuff, you know. But you know, I was very excited to hear and see him play, especially Lonely Road and Your Loving Flame, and I'm grateful that I got to see that. Driving Rain itself, it came out great live. I don't know that that was the best selection. I would have played other songs from that album if I had been Paul and his band. You know, I would have loved to see him do Tiny Bubble or Back in the Sunshine, perhaps. But anyway, it's a shame that people. But you know what? It's like that for every single artist with a catalog out there. You know, I've seen Fleetwood Mac, I've seen Kiss, I've seen countless quote unquote catalog bands, and it's true that the casual fans don't want to hear a lesser known song. So that's a shame, but it's part of playing stadiums. If Paul were to do a theater tour, which I dream of him doing, you know, where, you know, they're like 5,000 seaters or 2,000 seaters or whatever, then he could allow himself to play a lot of recent stuff, and he wouldn't feel the obligation to launch into Hey Jude and Can't Buy Me Love and I Saw Her Standing There and Yesterday, and you know,
I
the
wonder
list
what
goes on.
I wonder what we'd get from Mccartney 3. I feel like we'd probably get Sliding. That one feels like one
I think so.
he'd do live. Maybe Seize the Day, just because that's the one that he says is the Beatley one. So
Absolutely.
him
I
and
think
him and Wixie could do that lick live really well.
I believe so, and I also think that he'd be doing Find My Way.
Yeah, especially because the Beck success now as well.
The Beck success, and also just because it's, you know, it's a foot stomper, and even if you're not familiar with the song, as a casual fan, for instance, I think you'll be able to catch the beat and the hook pretty quickly. The one that I would absolutely die for is Long Tail Winter Bird. The opener.
Okay. No, see, I was thinking acoustic set. He puts Kiss of Venus in there.
He could definitely do it. I mean, you know, it's a challenge for his voice, that song, most definitely. I don't know if he'd want to have that challenge night after night, but it's a gorgeous song, and I certainly would appreciate seeing him do it. I just think that Long Tail Winter Bird, even though it's a jam, you know, he might want to cut it down for the live version, just cut it down by a minute or two, but just to have that build up live, him just playing on the acoustic, those really needly little notes, and then, you know, the bass coming in and the electric guitar coming in, and then eventually the drums, and oh man, I just think live that would be goosebump inducing. I think it'd be great.
I could see him definitely getting into the kind of, you know, in Stop Making Sense when the band come on one by one. I could imagine you'd have Brian Ray just on the stage at the start going,
Absolutely.
You'd probably have to have Paul playing the bass off stage for quite a while.
Probably would. Yes.
Because he has to come out for the big bit, you know. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a thing that Paul doesn't really do that I kind of wish he does. I mean, he just sort of, in the last 15 years or so,
he just walks on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fine. But in 2002, first time I saw him, he was standing behind the silhouette of the bass. Behind, like, you know, sort of do they call it Chinese puppetry? Is that what they call it? Anyway, was just like his silhouette, like a black silhouette. And then that white screen came up, and then there he was, you know, pointing out the crowd, playing the bass notes to Hello Goodbye, and then launched straight into the song. That was a magical opener. It was worthy of Kiss.
Yeah. Whoa, yeah, whoa. Yeah, oh god. Crack on with the next song, Paulie, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of cracking on, item number 2, please.
My prized tour book of the Driving Rain tour, which one of the great parts of this tour program is that he lists, each member of the band gets to list what their favorite top 10 driving songs are. And
that's cool.
They make for really great lists. And do you mind if I read you Paul's top 10 driving songs?
Is Get Out of My Way one of them?
You know what? it isn't, and it could have been, because he does, of course, plug a few of his own. But here's the list. It starts out with a Prince song, "Little Red Corvette," which is a fantastic song, and which I have to admit, at the age of 22, I didn't know very much of Prince.
Mhm.
And I remember when I got back home after the New York trip, I remember listening to all of these songs and getting into some of these songs and artists. His next choice is Lowell Folsom's cover of "Why Don't We Do It in the Road," which, if you've never heard that, it's really worth checking out. Lowell Folsom, he's like a old blues guy, and he does this really dirty, exciting version of "Why Don't We Do It in the Road." His next pick is a really surprising one. He picks "Lithium" by Nirvana.
Ah.
And, you know, that's a great track.
Yeah.
However, it does make you wonder. You know, you sort of kind of pause and go, wait, did Paul come up with that? Or did Paul say, well, I kind of like Nirvana. You have a song that maybe I could list in there, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like, because I'd love to picture Paul popping in Nevermind and skipping to track 5 to listen to Lithium. If he's ever done that, that's great. But I kind of have my doubts. But anyway, it's a great pick. Then he picks up a fairly obvious one, "Sweet Little 16" by Chuck Berry. Then "You Still Believe in Me" by the Beach Boys, which I really don't think is a driving song. It's got a little car horn sound effect at the end, but I don't think that's a driving song. So I think it's a weird choice, but all good. "Watching the Wheels" by John Lennon.
Yeah.
Nice choice. He picks "Lonely Road" by a certain Paul McCartney. Interesting pick.
Oh my God. I was joking when I said he would pick "Get Out of My Way," and he actually plugged a song off the new album. That's
Yeah,
so
absolutely. He plugged "Backseat of My Car" as well.
Helen Wheels is in there as well.
It's not in there. No, the only, like, it's not Wings. It's Paul and Linda McCartney. But the only quote unquote Wings song he picks is "The Backseat of My Car." And I remember seeing that in the tour program and thinking, well, then play it. If you love that song, play it live. What are you talking about? And then he goes on to list "Drive My Car" by, of course, the Beatles, which he didn't play on this tour. The tour it was the Driving Rain tour, and he doesn't play "Drive My Car." I mean, some of the logic behind Paul's choices is sometimes very odd. And he's played "Drive My Car" on tour so many times. And yet he didn't play it on the Driving Rain tour.
Hello, and welcome to the Helter Skelter tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, weird choices on Paul's part. But yes, this tour program is really beautiful. Of course, chock full of Linda McCartney shots, and also some modern day 2001, 2002, very airbrushed.
Oh, is that where that headshot on the color one comes from? Right.
Yes.
I've seen that before.
So I love this tour program, and it's still in mint condition, except for some little creases here. But I love the little piece of memorabilia. Yeah. I hate the creases. I wish they weren't there, but you know what? I lived with this tour book for 20 years now. So yeah, I guess, you know, I don't keep it sealed in a bag.
I smushed 2 vinyls in my backpack yesterday, and they both have a little bend on one of the corners. But to find them in where they were in HV2 for £40, and then literally once I picked them up and headed over to the counter, people rushed that area. Like 3 people were going, "Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "Sorry, lads, they were the only ones. I'm really sorry."
That's one of the amazing things about record vinyl collecting is, you know, going into unexpected places and finding unexpected gems. You know, you go into this small shop and you figure, well, this will be a waste of my time because this guy won't have anything. And then you find that one copy of an album that you've been looking for years, and it was worth your visit, you know?
Oh no, but it's the bane of all of your friend and partners' lives, though. Like every time you go to a new town, it's like, right, let's just go check out all the charity shops. We'll go check out all the secondhand shops, all the thrift stores, and the record shop.
Yeah, It's a
Sorry.
test of
Sorry.
it's a test of friendship,
Just
really.
just going through them all like that. Do you find anything? Just 1 second.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
need silence. Thank you.
That's right.
Right. Something not from the Driving Rain tour. Come on.
Yes.
What do we got for number 3?
This is I believe, as I mentioned earlier, I believe this is an item that Ethan Alexanian, host of Fans on the Run, also had. But
Is this the
really
jacket?
I really cherish this little guy here.
I need one so much. I need one so badly.
I absolutely love him. And, I guess I bought this in 99 or 98. When did they reissue Yellow Submarine, that song track?
They
I can't
issued it
remember
in
exactly.
1990.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I bought it at that point, and I also own John. Sadly, I don't own George and Ringo, because when I found these at Toys R Us back in the day, I only had money for 2 of them. So of course I picked Paul and John because, well, they're Paul and John.
Oh my God.
But now I kind of regret not, I wish I had had a credit card back then or something, I could have purchased all 4 of them. But my Paul is really special to me. I mean, he's sort of like the avatar of my living room. He's the man.
Hang on. I've got to show you my similar one. Hang on.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, I'll have a chat with Paul. Paul, how are you doing?
This little guy
Yes.
is always in whatever room I work in.
Yes, absolutely. That's
my
great.
little Lego Paulie. He's going to just be right here for the rest of the interview. But
that's fantastic.
I would you know how there's always a controversy, all the minority characters or the POC characters or women characters in Star Wars. You can't get the action figures, but they've made 20,000 extra copies of Han Solo or something. I'm thinking, is it harder to get the George and Ringo ones? Did they short print them just because they knew someone in marketing was like, make more John and Paul ones?
It's very possible. It's very possible. And, I've promised myself that someday when I run across, an offer to purchase George and Ringo from someone, if the price is right, I'll probably get them. I do kind of have a completist side to me. And I do find that Paul and George look a little lonely on themselves.
Dude, I need a blue and white Mccartney 3 hat so badly just to complete the collection. It's
right. It's a pretty nifty looking hat.
No.
And again, a great conversation starter. People will ask you, well, what's that hat about?
What's that hat about? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Because to us fans, it's quite obvious, but to someone who, just a casual fan or someone that's not a fan at all, they would have no clue what the dice and the M and the C and the 3 mean,
Yeah, they probably think it's some sort of Illuminati cult symbology, and it most likely is, knowing our Paulie. No, I think the quality of these hats was surprisingly high, actually, for a cheap little cheap little fabric hat. It stood me well so far. The yellow one's
that's good.
A bit loose on the head, but
yeah. So how many do you have in total?
I've got this one and the yellow one.
Okay, right. Yeah. And they made 3 or they made 4?
No, there's a blue and another white one as well. There was a total of 4,
right.
Because there were 4 bonus tracks.
Right.
And you get the boxes and I should have just splurged that and got more dice. There was a Mccartney 3 Christmas decoration, I believe.
I kind of wish I had the dice. I have to admit, I kind of do wish I had that. But the rest, I just sort of thought, well, they're great promo items, but I didn't feel the need so much. Do you think I should have felt the need?
I'm only on YouTube because I want fucking promo stuff. MPL does not consort with podcasters whatsoever. So I am on YouTube purely in the vain hope that I'll get views, and then they'll have to send me stuff because I'll be an influencer.
But you know what? You've got it right, because I mean, indeed, MPL does need to cater to these podcasters, because what you guys are doing is just feeding the legacy. and feeding the love we have for this man and these men's music. You know, I mean, it's incredible to me that I can sit down and listen to you, Sam, listening to Wildlife as you talk and listen to the album at the same time, and that it's actually a super joyful experience. You know, most people, if you tell them, hey, what do you think about listening to an album you really love with some guy talking over it about his views and opinions? On paper,
It
that sounds
sounds
like a
awful,
terrible
doesn't it?
idea. Yeah, it sounds like, hey, I don't want to hear some, but I do, you know, because
Yeah.
I'm connecting with a fan in a virtual way. And as fans, we're sharing the experience of listening to an album. So I
Oh
think
yeah. Right.
podcasters are doing incredible work for the legacy.
The
So
secret of
yes,
that format, though, just to reveal
yes,
the man behind the curtain slightly, if I don't keep constantly talking, I will get sued. So it's almost like a game. Like I have to keep coming up with
right.
content, and
I get
there
that.
there are more retakes of Listen with Sam than I will ever let on, because like what I never bother to do is put a stopwatch and just read what my notes say first and just see if,
Right.
because like when people do bubble writing on a birthday card, they'll start like the first letter really big. It
Yes.
takes up half the page, and you have
Yes.
to squeeze it all in there.
Yes.
Quick,
They
quick, 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 quick,
realize
quick.
that they have a lot to say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I am. Like when I come up to like the end of a song, I'm like, oh, and yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really, really good, really good. Anyway, and now we are on to Medicine Jar. You know,
Right. Right. Yeah. I hear you.
although
Uh,
they are probably the lowest viewed side series of the podcast, so I don't think that's 100% a shared opinion.
and I sort of understand because it is a sort of like it's a niche thing, I guess, but it's fun, you know, because it's sort of like it helps you appreciate. Yeah, I guess that's what I like about that too. You know, it's
Mm,
sort of you know, to share views about really specific things, specific guitar parts,
yeah,
specific the way certain lines are sung. I'm what a joy, what a joy.
right. In fourth place, what do we got?
Yes, my next item sort of represents, I guess, my whole archive collection, but it's my favorite in the
Ooh,
archive.
okay. Which one is it?
It
Come on.
is the Ram box set. I
I
mean,
love this one. Yeah.
yes, and I'm sure that most Macca obsessives have this box set. So this isn't like the most novelty item I own, but
This is the
this
best of the
box
early ones, isn't it? Of like the early
it
archives.
It absolutely is, you know, and I own Band on the Run and Mccartney 2. You know, those were books and they were nice, and I'm grateful we got them, and they're a joy to read, and the pictures are fantastic and all that. But I mean, this box with all of the items, including the little book of sheep, you know, with all these different pictures of sheep in them. I mean, you know, it's a little silly. It makes your eyes roll ever so slightly. But at the same time, man, it's the full Ram experience. And when I'm listening to Ram and nerding out and there aren't other people around, I'm for sure taking this box set out. And I'm for sure looking at these wonderful pictures and picturing Paul in New York recording these songs with these fantastic musicians and Linda doing those extraordinary harmonies. Ram is an experience, and the box set just enhances the experience. Same goes with the Flaming Pie box set. And the thing about these box sets is, Sam, and I think you'll agree with me on this, is that they've also made us reappraise these albums.
Yeah, totally.
A, a great example of that is Pipes of Peace. I'm not a huge Pipes of Peace fan. I'm still not a huge Pipes of Peace fan, but having the box set, reading about the background of these songs, looking at them in, for instance, Montserrat, the George Martin studio, you know, and connecting with Stevie Wonder and these Stanley Clark and these great musicians, you know, it puts me there and it puts me in that zone,
Mm,
and it really makes me appreciate the music even more. Same goes with Wildlife. Listening to those rough early mixes, reading about how the album came about, it just really makes me appreciate. So yeah, perhaps Mumbo isn't my favorite piece of McCartney music, but when you listen to it with the box set and you're really immersed in it,
Mm-hmm.
you can't help but reappraise and reappreciate some of the stuff that perhaps initially you sort of skipped over, you know?
Well, like just listening to something like "It's Not On," going back to the Pipes of Peace box set.
Yes.
When you hear the middle section where he's talking about Arnie Pipe, the average type, and it's like, hang
Yeah.
on, wait.
Yeah.
Is what the hell is this album supposed to be about? Sorry,
Yeah.
was this the main theme? Where was this change in production? No one's ever spoken about this. It's only been
True. Yeah.
theorized.
Very true. Very true.
And then you look at another box set and you're like, hang on, Paul, did you just not want to give Denny Lane money to just to not include Holidays on the Wings at the Speed of Sound one? Because that album totally recontextualized for me what McCartney was doing in 76. When you have Holidays, Momax hidden tracks, and then the box set together, it's like, oh, actually, this was a very guitar synthy year, but yet we know it as the kind of ballady, syrupy piano era, and it's not that at all.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating. And, you know, just an album like McCartney 2, you know, until the archive edition of McCartney 2, that was a dust collector album for me. You know, I have the entire collection, the Paul McCartney collection, which I think he released in, I think it was 93. That first batch of digitally remastered catalog that he put out there. And yeah, I own McCartney 2 in that format. And, you know, I'd listen to it once or twice and, you know, but that was just an album that I didn't spend time with. And then the box set came out and I was like, well, am I buying it or am I not buying it? I love McCartney from 70, but I don't really love McCartney from 80. Well, it took me that box set to make me a fan of McCartney 2. And now I rank it as, man, it's so tough to rank, but it would probably be in my top 5 or at the very least top 10 favorite ever McCartney albums. And I would have never said that before the archive release. So these things are valuable and powerful things to release, I find. They change the narrative. And not in a bad way.
Yeah. Oh, no, I get that. McCartney 2 archive, I used to think it was so bountiful, but I feel like they've missed out on an opportunity just to officially title it Frozen Japanese Worldwide. That's just a little woke thing that I think they should just bite the bullet and do. Just do it. But the other one was literally only last year I realized that there were uncut full-length versions of a lot of the songs, like that Secret Friend is longer, Coming Up has an extra verse, Frozen Japanese is longer, Front Parlour is longer, and it's like, why is that on McCartney's official YouTube page and not on any of the albums? It was so weird to me. And there was no like news article that said, oh, by the way, new versions of McCartney 2 are just on his YouTube page now. I just discovered it by accident, and it kind of cheapens the current archive box.
Right. But there is an extended version of Coming Up on the box set.
There is. Verse. Okay. I've not heard it on streaming. Maybe it's different on streaming. I'm not sure.
Right. But it's definitely there. It's okay. I can see why he cut it out, because he misses his cue into that verse.
Okay.
And you know, it's very nice. But yeah, I completely agree with you. You do feel sometimes that, hey, this feels pretty complete, but it isn't. You know, you could have afforded to give us another CD of, as you say, extra length versions and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, just let it go. Put it out there. We want it. We're fans and we want it.
Yeah, like, you know, put a copy of R Lane in with the Red Rose Speedway box set, chuck in Japanese Tears with the Back to the Egg one. I mean,
are we going to get Back to the Egg in London Town, Sam?
No, we're never going to get them. We're never, ever going to get them. There's definitely going to have, if they do a double box set like they did with the first two, I think that'd be nice. Maybe. So what do you have as the middle one? Do you have a live album of the latter stuff? Do you have like a Water Wings middle disc? Because you've got to have something to be the exclusive for the big
Yes.
box, you know.
Well, I mean, that one of those 1979 shows, I guess.
Mm.
You know,
Hot Hits, Cold Cuts, maybe that was meant to be 78. You could have that as the middle.
That could be very interesting as well. Absolutely. I mean, I desperately want box sets to come out of those albums. I love both those albums. I know London Town is much maligned and people sort of, you know, and it does go on a bit too long as an album. I feel that it lacks focus, but still the songs that I love on both those albums, I adore. And I want an official version of Water Spout. I mean,
Oh,
the official
yeah.
version of Water Spout. I mean, that's a must. I can't believe that that's not out there officially. It's a tragedy. It really is.
Tragedy. No.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so much you could do with a London Town box. There is so much, because what I like about McCartney is as he goes later into his career, there just seems to be more and more demos. Just because I feel like he's just doing it on the fly more in his day-to-day life, but also I guess he's just trying to catalog things a little more and, you know,
absolutely
be a little more organized in that sense. But, you know, as we saw with something like the piano tape from like 73, 74, you think you know the demos, and then it's like, oh, Mullikintyre was 90% written 4 years prior. The Rockestra theme was mapped out nearly a decade before he did anything with it.
It's absolutely incredible.
You know, like when they find a new fossil and it just fucks up the entire fossil record.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's absolutely one of those things. And God. You know that there are tons of things and tons of material that we don't even know about. And, that stuff.
Silly love songs really had feathers, you know. Right, final item, number 5, Quattro. Oh, is that what I think it is?
With this little box set.
Is that the McCartney years by any chance?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. This was a gift from my one of my grandmothers just before she passed. Actually, I think it's the last Christmas gift she got me, and I know very well that she got it because my parents told her what to get. I don't think that she would have instinctually known to go to a DVD shop and get this for me. But this was a major item because this was the first time and basically the only time that I can think of anyway, that Paul released just a bunch of videos from spanning his entire career. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are a bunch of videos missing, i.e. there are no videos from Back to the Egg on here. There are no videos from... well, anyway, there's a lot of stuff missing.
I bet Stranglehold ain't on there, you know?
Oh, Stranglehold is definitely not on here. Definitely not. And there are no Driving Rain videos, which is kind of surprising. You know, like I would have loved Lonely Road and Your Loving Flame to be on here. So yes, there are some glaring omissions, but this was a huge contributor. I was, by this point, when this was released, which was 2006, I think.
The internet's in full swing at this point. YouTube's, I think, in its infancy still, but
it's in its infancy. So a lot of the stuff I had never seen, and it just sort of fed into the McCartney love and / I hate to call it an obsession because it makes it sound creepy, but let's face it, it's such a daily, almost hourly thing that what is it if it's not an obsession, really, you know? But yeah, just fed into that because now all of a sudden the 70s, Paul, I was really seeing, you know, and sort of everything became cool and it made me see him as the rock god that he really was in that era. Whereas I think my brain still sort of registered Wings as kind of a, you know, a family man that just happens to have a band on the side. But really, you see in these videos and in the 70s footage, and of course, we've seen a ton of footage since then, and they've remastered Rock Show, which I adore and all that. But back then I hadn't seen a lot of that stuff. And so seeing these videos was just, wow, what a beast this man is, and just the continuation of it. He has a part of his 2004, I believe, Glastonbury set on here.
Oh, that's cool.
Which it's a shame that it's not the whole show. I really do wish it was the whole thing, but most of the set is on here. And that was amazing for me to see, because I'd only read about that show in like NME and in the British music magazines that I bought back in the day. And so for me, seeing footage of that was amazing. There are a few tracks from the Unplugged show, which I hope he finally officially releases someday on Blu-ray or DVD or whatnot. Yeah, that box set, this little box of 3 DVDs was a game changer for me. It really was.
I don't want to be the herald of doom or anything, but there is a part of me that worries that now with Paul's toes and fingers dipped into both Disney Plus, Hulu, and Spotify, if the age of the physical release is slowly starting to wane, even though the physical release is the only thing that's keeping McCartney at number one at the moment,
right?
But the wider like ancillary stuff, Blu-rays, DVDs,
yeah,
like, it could all just go on streaming now. But if it did, we had this discussion with Phoebe when we were talking about this show. But if One Hand Clapping was just on Disney Plus,
yes.
Put it out. There are people on YouTube who can do better HDifications of stuff than the actual officials can. So just put it out there.
Absolutely.
And it'd be so cool. People be like,
yes,
what is this?
Absolutely. And One Hand Clapping. I mean, man, I love that you mentioned that, because that is that again, what a huge, like, seeing that show is just amazing. My favorite part of that One Hand Clapping thing is when they launch into Jet.
Okay.
And Linda has her famous little solo,
But you can hear that she's playing it because it's not perfect. It's great.
Right, exactly. And when they cut back to Paul at the mic and he's looking at Linda playing her part and she's behind him, and he sort of turns around to continue singing, but the pride in his face and the joy he has in his face that Linda, she nailed it,
Yeah, she got it.
Yeah. He seems so proud and so loving in that moment. And that, to me, even talking about it, I get goosebumps, because that is the Paul that has made me the fan that I am. Just his love and his enthusiasm and his excitement about it. Man, you can tell this man loves what he's doing. And you still see that same level of excitement in the very most recent concert footage. You can look up any video of his, and even if he's doing Hey Jude, which he's done 1,697 times, he still looks excited to be doing it. So, I mean, that's acting. I'm sure a lot of it is acting, but there's still a huge amount of truth in there as well. It's not just acting. It's not just a facade. This man loves his music, loves what he's doing, and loves to play with a band. It's obvious.
It is. And I can't think of a better note to end this episode on there, Max. Thank you so much for coming on here. This has been absolutely incredible. Your items all come with such incredible backstories to them. I feel like I've had an autobiography of your life there. That's absolutely
there you go.
Fantastic, that is. And you can probably tell a lot about people's lives purely through their McCartney collections if you know it all.
I think so.
Though some if archaeologists were to find my collection, they'd be like, he really likes Snover. He really liked that one, which is, I guess, isn't wrong. I guess it isn't wrong. Max, where can people find you? Are you about on the socials? Am I posting anything down below?
Absolutely. Well, what would mean the most to me is that people go check out my music. Max Comeau. Comeau is spelled Comeau. Look me up on any streaming platform, be it Spotify, Deezer. Sam will hopefully post the links as he's pointing down there. And just go listen. You might hear some McCartney in there. You might also hear some Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood Mac influence, but McCartney is all over my heart. So I think he shows up once in a while in my music.
As long as the Lindsey Buckingham is more like the live version of Big Love rather than the studio album version.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Absolutely. Yeah, it's like, imagine a stripped down version of Pretty Little Head done on one guitar instead of all that 80s production. It's the same kind of deal.
Lindsey Buckingham's going, silk and precious stones. Oh,
Yes, it'd be amazing.
Oh, God, that really would.
It would
and
rip.
On that note, folks,
yes.
on that note, we are going to end.
Thank you, Sam.
Episode X of Macca in Your Attic, a Paul or Nothing spin-off. Check out all the links down below. Get in contact. Check us out on Patreon. Yada, yada, yada. Peace and love, peace and love. No more autographs. Play us out, Denny. I don't know why I keep saying play us out, Denny. That's I don't play the Denny song on this show. That's really funny.
Right.
That's just muscle memory, that is.
I love it. I love it.
No, it's like
this was fun, Sam.
No, it was. No. I'll definitely think of something for the pod because I am, especially like when I come up to Driving Rain as well. Like I'm sure there's what's the movie for that tour?
I think it's called Back in the US. DVD.
Well, I mean, I still think Ken Michaels will be the album review guy forever, I guess. But definitely, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about maybe our own versions of what the red and blue albums should be. That'd be an interesting conversation.
I'm completely obsessed with the red and blue albums, and it surprises even me how obsessed I am with them because, the idea of compiling the Beatles seems like, sort of like a pointless exercise. However, seeing the impact that those two compilations had on a whole generation, even though it was only 3 years after their breakup, like that whole 70s generation got into them because of those albums. And the Red Album was one of the first things that a friend lent to me and made me go, holy crap, their catalog is amazing.
It's canonized some weird songs though.
Yes, absolutely. There are some weird inclusions, especially on the Blue Album, but they're great and they're beautiful packages as well. That's another thing, that the power of those two images, 1962 Beatles or early 1963 and 1969 Harry. Was
that the photographer's idea, or was it John's? I can't remember.
I think it was John's idea. I seem to remember reading on more than one occasion that it was John's idea. Like, hey, why don't we just go back there and like do a copy shot of the first album cover?
I wish they would have done it for Get Back.
Yes,
as it were.
I wish too, because the cover of Let It Be is pretty dull.
Yeah, and I'm annoyed that Paul's got red behind him and the others don't. It feels very thrown together.
I know.
I'll be interested to see what they do with the new one.
I'll be very interested in seeing that as well. There's also like a black shadow or a thumb in front of Ringo, and that's always
there. Oh,
yeah. I mean, there's something in front of him that's like, it's sort of like something's blocking him, or I mean, his whole face is visible, obviously, but. Yeah,
that's just his nose, mate. That is just his nose.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Poor Ringo.
Oh, I can't say.
Don't you just love that video of Ringo telling fans not to send things?
Almost every person I talk to mentions that off air. That's so funny.
Man, I love that video.
No more from June the 12th. Do not send me
and the
anything.
fact that it starts with a close up of his nose,
and
slowly zooms on. Hello, Beatle fans.
No, but he must hate that Simpsons episode though, because it implies that he's still answering the fan mail.
Yes.
Although that is one of my favorite jokes though. It's like, dear Casey, my favorite color is blue. Thank you for asking.
Yes.
I love it. It's such a funny joke.
It really is. Thank goodness for the Simpsons, actually, because as I think I mentioned this on Ethan's podcast. That's where I discovered Maybe I'm Amazed.
Oh, really?
Maybe I'm Amazed plays over the credits of that episode where
with Paul a ripping recipe for lentil soup. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I was just slowly getting into the Beatles at that point, and I remember thinking, well, what Beatles album is that on? You know, and just like back then, internet was still in its infancy, and you couldn't readily find information. So it took me a little while before learning that Maybe I'm Amazed was on Mccartney. You know, back when information wasn't as easily available as it is now.
What I like about that episode in particular is that it forces one of my friends who's a major Simpsons fan who wants to understand every joke. Like he's the kind of guy that like wants to understand why Bob Dole saying Bob Dole is funny.
Right. Yeah.
Like why is that funny? And so that means he has to understand what the fifth Beatle means.
Yes.
He has to understand what Rishi Kesh is and stuff
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
Sure you were, Apu, you know, and like I'm glad that he has to have like I'm Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Man. I hope you will enjoy my show. So he has to know that those lyrics are wrong. I'm like, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? I'm actually this afternoon or tonight, I'm actually going to go and watch that Simpsons episode. I haven't seen it in years, and I'm wanting to see it again. And now that it's on. Anyway, it's on one of the streaming platforms
it's
now.
Lisa the vegetarian,
Yes.
Marge the artist, or Marge the painter, and then the B Sharps is the name of it.
Yes. I love that B Sharps episode.
Oh, God, no. My friend was teaching me some bass notes, and it's very easily mathematical. It's like it goes from A to C to D, E, like that. And then I went, well, hang on, what's supposed to be here? And he was like, well, no, that's C. I was like, well, no, shouldn't it be B? And he went, there is no, that's why it's a joke. Oh my God, I'm 28 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh my God, the B sharp.
It's real clever. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh my God. We need a name.
Well,
that's slightly
let's do this again soon.
You know, I'm rambling, man. I'm not going to keep you.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome, bro. Actually, you know what? Oh, I think the rain clouds have parted. I'm going for a bite.
You know what's insane? That's exactly what happened on my end as well. When we started this, it was gray and rainy, and now it's actually really sunny out.
God, so you know, the butterfly effect dictates that it's stormy in Africa right now because it's got to go somewhere.
What part of the UK are you in?
I'm from Birmingham, where Danny Lane's from.
All right, nice, very nice.
We've got more canals than Venice. We actually do. That's a fact. That is.
It's a fact. Well, there you go.
We're always very, very proud of that one.
Well, I can see. I can definitely see.
God,
nice hair, man.
I wore the hat. I wore the hat for the entire episode. I've never done that. Normally I'm going.
You take it off,
or go. Yeah. I can't stand this. You know.
The hair looks good, man.
No, I'm going for the 1969, 1970 Mccartney look. You know?
Yes,
but
absolutely.
The mustache still doesn't quite join to the beard. And it's like, I'm not a man yet. I'm not a man.
No, it looks, well, hey, I could never grow that kind of beard, bro. So you got something going on there.
You should see my mother, you know. She come from a very hairy family. Uncle's got a huge mustache. Granddad had white hair, ginger beard. And if this gets any longer, it'll start going ginger.
Right. Wow.
Like
that's
tips.
That's pretty awesome.
Fire.
But yeah, McCartney 69 is a good look, man.
No, I'm well, I mean, I probably could go for the McCartney like 1980 look or the 67 look if I just did that. But I feel like I look
too, for
I
sure.
feel like I look more like, I don't know, Johnny Depp, like a weird pervy look with just got a mustache. I don't like it at all. Right, man. I'm logging off.
Have a great day.
Or
a great rest of the day, and we'll be in touch. Anytime you want me on anything, I'll come running, Sam.
Sweet, man. No, this will go up on Patreon right away, and in 2 months' time, this will probably be out on YouTube. I imagine, because there's already a backlog of like 6 episodes. But Ethan's gonna have fun doing your thumbnail soon, I imagine.
All right. Thanks, man.
Take care, bro. Have a nice day.
Take care.